Hello, and welcome back to another episode of New Mommy Revelations, a podcast by New Mommy Life. And today's title is Things I Wish I Really Knew Before Becoming a Mom. I was kind of wondering what the heck or why the heck is this information hidden. And so, yeah, I'm just going to dive right in because there's a couple things that I have learned along the way that I think would have been helpful, or I would have found them helpful, even if it was not necessarily someone giving me advice. And if you haven't listened to the unsolicited advice episode, you can do so after this episode, or if you want to pop over there first and then come back and listen to this one, you can. Um, these are just things that I just thought that would have probably helped ease my mind about things because I had a lot of anxiety over getting things right or having things be perfect. And of course, we know those two things just don't exist because there's no one right way to do a thing. And perfection just flat out doesn't exist. So we're going to completely just wipe that off of our table of thinking we have to constantly be in competition with ourselves to keep up with some sort of internal perfection. And I'm speaking for myself because that's exactly how I felt. I was keeping up with some like internal perfection of what I thought things were supposed to look like versus what they were actually feeling like in terms of feeling good. And yeah, so I kind of just want to dive in real quickly before I go off on a ramble here. So the first thing I wish I really knew before I became a mom was your life does not end. It evolves and that it's not linear. So, what that means for me, and of course, take what you need from this and make it your own. Anything that doesn't resonate, don't try to force it to fit at all. So, life does not end when you become a mom. And when I say that, I mean in terms of me thinking that me, the person, the woman, the human, my life and things that I had planned for myself, things that I wanted, things that I still desire to this day, the outlook in terms of things that I am working towards achieving and bettering myself, that type of stuff, that inner work, that doesn't stop just because you're a mom now. And I think that narrative or a lot of that language filled my mind because it was like everyone around me for the most part, and even before I became a mom, I feel like even when I was like just growing up as a child, you kind of are inundated with a lot of messaging that can be kind of subtle, and you hear things like, oh, well, you're a mom now and it's not about you anymore. And yes, I understand that completely. It is not about you anymore. Now it's more about you being selfless versus being selfish, although there is sacred selfishness, and I'll speak about that in another podcast episode. However, I found that that type of language, if not like kind of said with a more harmonious disposition, if you will, can lead you to believe that your life now has to be placed on the back burner because you made the decision to become a mom. And that's just not true. Your life is still your life. You have your own soul, you have your own mission, you have your own path, you have your own direction, and your child or your children are now a part of that, and you have now become the anchor and the backbone and the facilitator and the biggest supporter, I feel, to help them and propel them into their mission, into their soul's path. And that's how I look at that. So life does not end. You're going to keep evolving and keep growing as your children are evolving and growing. And if anything, I feel like you have a real time living experience of like what it's like to look at it from a third person point of view. Because when you were growing up as a child, your parents were looking at you and you were experiencing the growth and the changes in the childhood. And now you're on the other side of it to where now you can witness firsthand a tiny human that was not here and the physical, and then you saw that process go through, then you gave birth, and then now here they are on the other side of life, and you're witnessing them in real time grow every day. And so you can see that evolvement and that growth and how you're going to keep changing as with the seasons change. And that evolvement and that growth, it's not linear. And for me and my personal experience has been there's going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be twists and turns. Like there's going to be times where I thought that we were past something and then come to find out like, oh, maybe we're not because maybe we didn't really get to the root issue. So I'm trying to think of an example here that's not going to be too personal. Although I don't mind getting personal, I just don't want to be like crossing boundaries because you know how I am about boundaries. And um, asking has been, I guess, a thing now with Kind, and I'm really working on her getting more comfortable with asking for something versus just making a split second decision and doing something and not like thinking about it clearly all the way through. So we were out and about running errands, and she had like a juice box with her. I get like little juice boxes every now and again as a treat. And I bought a new backpack for us so I can keep snacks and things because she's always like wants snacks like 24/7. Like I know you moms out there are probably like, yeah, I know, like where do they put all this food? I don't know. So I bought a new backpack for her, well for us really, but it has a compartment where I can keep food cold so we can put those little ice packs in it. So I packed it with some ice packs, and she put some snacks in there. She put a juice box in there. She put a couple other things in there. Now, normally I'm not like really a big micromanager. I'm not like you have to tell me every time you do something. You have to ask me to go to the bathroom. I'm not like that. But like certain things that, like that are more like a treat, or maybe it's something that she's not really allowed to have, like just kind of like freely. I prefer she ask me as opposed to like just going in the pantry and grabbing it. So like candy or like gum, like I get her this aspartame free gum that she likes to chew. She has to ask me because I was kind of giving her the liberty and freedom to just kind of use her own discretion, and the whole bag would be gone. And I get the bigger bag so we have it so it'll last. She'll get like 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of gum a day, and then I go maybe to try some for myself, and it's gone. So I had to really limit her ability just to kind of grab certain things. So when it comes to like juice or sweets, because I'm very on it when it comes to like her health and nutrition, I'm leading somewhere, obviously, I'm as long-winded as I'm doing this. So we were driving around, and she drank her juice box. Now, I normally have, it has like a porter potty, I guess I would call it. I forget the brand name, but it's like a porter potty that if we're anywhere at any given time, we can always pull over. She can use the restroom because she has the bladder of a pregnant lady. It's like an inside joke that we have. I don't know what it is, but she will drink like nothing and have to go to the bathroom 10 times over. I don't know what it is. So I went ahead and invested in getting her a little porta potty. So when we're out and about running errands, because you know how it is, you can't always find a restroom in time. Sometimes there's a line. Sometimes like it's just a mess. Sometimes it's just gross and nasty in there. Like you just don't want to be in a public restroom. Like it's just bleh. Sometimes it doesn't work. So I'd rather things just be cleaner, more hygienic, and we can do what we got to do and then get on with our day. Unfortunately, I didn't have it with me, which it always happens that way. It's like when you need something, you don't have it, but when you have it, you don't need it. It's like the weirdest thing. So she drinks the juice box, but didn't ask me beforehand. And we had literally had lunch, I believe, like an hour before. And I was very intentional about making sure she used the restroom before we left because I knew we were going to be running around, driving on the freeway. I had a couple errands, and I was meeting a friend of mine for a business thing, and I was like, okay, we're not gonna have time to go to the bathroom between now and at least for like another hour. So I was like, Kind, make sure you go to the bathroom before we leave. She went to the bathroom, and things were fine. But somewhere along the line, she opened the backpack and got the juice out, and then she had to go to the bathroom. And what happens right at the time that I knew we were not gonna have access to a restroom? And it was just so frustrating because now I'm breaking my neck to try to find a bathroom, try to find somewhere for her to go. But it's things like that where I'm like, Kind, if you had asked me for the juice box, you wouldn't be in the situation because you should have asked me and I would have said no, which you probably would have, which is what she was probably trying to avoid. She really wanted the juice. And the answer would have been not necessarily no, but just not right now. because I don't want you having to go to the bathroom and she knows how she is. So this is a long-winded example here, but I'm saying in terms of like the linear growth, because we've had this conversation several times, yet she still is learning how to ask. And I know it's a process. I know she's going to get better because she does get better. She's asked me, she'll be like, yeah, mom, can I ask this? Can I have this? And, then everything's fine. Like, there's no issue. But then it'll be like times like that in the moment when I'm like, Connie, if you would have asked me for the juice box, you knew the answer would have been no because there's no bathroom. So I feel like a lot of it is just because she was thinking that she knew the answer. So she was more of like, well, it's better for me to say sorry than to ask for permission. Like, I don't even think she even heard that saying. I'm sure we've all heard that saying, but she just knows it like within her own understanding. So that's just an example, like how things are just not linear, right? So yes, 1 minute you think we've had the discussions, we've had the examples, we've had the talks, we've given all the rationales behind the behavior and whatnot. And then lo and behold, here we are in the midst of a real life moment, and here it is. So yes, that example was just led me to having to go to the bathroom when I knew I wasn't trying to do all that, and I tried to avoid it. I did everything with my power to ensure we were going to avoid it. But then life is going to life, and your little person may grab a juice box and drink it and have to go to the bathroom 5 seconds later. And that's just what it is. So that's how I interpret, for one, life not ending. You're going to keep growing. You're going to keep evolving together as a mom, as your children are growing and evolving as well. And that growth is not linear, and you are going to go through ebbs and flows of it. Secondly is everyone's not really going to understand, and some will say insensitive things because perhaps they just don't know any better. And especially this might come from your non-mom friends. And this is my personal experience of it because I've noticed like there's changes to life, how I just spoke about earlier, of, growth. And when you're single versus when you're married versus when you have children versus when you are in a season of like moving versus when you're in a season of like home ownership versus renting versus a season of being in school studying for like the bar exam, that's an example, versus you launching your own business or perhaps becoming a freelancer, or if you decide to climb the corporate ladder. Like, we all going to go through seasons in life, and I feel like when you become a mom, and especially as it pertains to your non-mom friends, they're just not always going to be understanding and see things from your perspective. So for me, it takes a lot of patience, for one, and just having compassion, and for one, and thirdly, I will say, but probably the most important thing is just not taking things personal and just not getting upset. And it's nothing to even really get upset about because they just don't see it through your lens. So they're not going to understand. Like, for instance, I think I had like an event or something to go to, and I got pushed back. And I don't know, how this life, like I said, lifes. And, things come up, things change, things don't go according to plan. And as a single non-mom friend of yours, she's not going to understand a schedule. She's not going to understand, like, okay, the event or the meeting or whatever got pushed back by an hour and a half. That coincides with dinner time. And food with children, especially small children, we all know this, it's not a game. So there is no wiggle room of like, oh, we can just push that back by another hour or two and it's okay because, it's okay. It's like, no, it's not okay. That's dinner time, and dinner time is not a joke. So the meeting's going to have to be pushed back now by another hour or an hour and a half because I have to prepare, I have to cook, we have to eat, we have to clean up, I have to get settled, we have to wash hands, brush teeth, floss. Like, it's a whole process with mealtime. So it's not just we can move things around and that's that. And so that's just one example of what I've had to process and go through and learn better ways to communicate and have patience and be understanding and not get upset about stuff, because I had to really stop myself and think, okay, they're not a mom. They don't do this every day. They don't really have anyone they're responsible for. They're just responsible for themselves. And when you're in that stage of life, I'm not going to say it's selfish just to say selfish, but you are just in a very just linear experience, I would say. Like, you just are not aware of what it takes to be like literally responsible for the very life of another human. And that includes basics, food, clothing, and shelter, on top of all the other things you're responsible for. So that's one thing I will say that I wish I had really knew before becoming a mom, that the shift in relationships will change contingent upon where your other friends are in their life. And of course, it will balance out, because if they do decide to become a mom in the future, then they'll understand it, in a better way, I feel. So it's things like that I've learned to also grow and evolve into, which is also actually provided a lot of depth to my relationships. So I don't ever wanted to feel just because, like, I have girlfriends that are single or girlfriends that are not parents, even if they're married but they don't have children yet, or if they're engaged or they're just dating. I don't ever want to feel like I have to, like, cut all my friends off because they're not moms. Like, I kind of didn't feel right. And then I don't want my all my circle of friends to only be moms as well, or to be married. That's not what I want as well. I want, like, I want different perspectives. I want, like, some single friends. I do want some engaged friends, or some dating friends, or some married friends, or some other mom friends, or some other non-mom friends. Like, I like an eclectic viewpoint of just, people in my life. And I don't want it to just be like I'm completely just in this bubble and we only talk about one thing and we look at everything from the same perspective. Like, I don't really like to look at life that way. To add more character and more different points of view, because you never know. Like, you can look at stuff from a different point of view, and it opens up my mind to unlock other ways of how to be more empathetic, or how to have better understanding, or how to be a better communicator. So this is a perfect example that has helped me evolve in that department, because I've had to understand that everyone has their own story. Everyone's, like, starring in their own film. They're their own protagonist. And so you can't insert yourself into someone else's movie and think that they're going to see it your way, because I have my own movie that I'm operating in. So I think that was a good point that I've learned, that I wanted to share, because I've had to learn that, you know, everyone's not going to understand things. Sometimes some stuff can come across as being insensitive. However, I found that it's really more so because they just don't know any better, not because they're trying to be insensitive, just because they're trying to be a jerk. They just really don't know. And so that was one thing that I wish I had learned sooner or knew sooner, because I would have went into certain conversations or situations having a better understanding. However, it still worked out. The friends that I've had these conversations with have just been lovely and warm, and that's just who they are. So I didn't expect anything less than that. But it was great because it provided both of us with the ability to deepen our relationship, and so that was one thing I wanted to share as well. Hello, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I wanted to stop in here real briefly and invite you all to join the Mama Tribe. If you to do so, you can do so by visiting us online at newmommylifetv.com, or you may click the link below the video or the podcast here. It'll take you straight away over to that. There we have our bi-weekly Mama Tribe newsletter, where we share access to important topics that go over homeschooling, our home educational resources, as well as for the new moms or the new mamas to be, how to create and experience an empowered and harmonious pregnancy, prenatal, and or postpartum plan, plus community building and ways to be more loving towards yourself while on your mommyhood journey. And so if you haven't joined yet, we encourage you and welcome you in. And we look forward to connecting with all you mamas out there. And now we're back into our regularly scheduled program. And the third point I wanted to touch on and share is that you will deal with internal battles that no one can fight for you. And it's kind of goes back into the dark night of the soul that I spoke about within mom guilt. If you haven't listened to that episode, you can do so as well. But you will have to show up for you. And this is a little bit separate from mom guilt, and I'm not going to dive into postpartum depression either here in this episode, because I don't want to make this too long, because I did deal with that as well, and I want that to be its own separate segment, because there's a lot of things in there that I want to unpack, and I want to be able to do it justice. However, dealing with internal battles that no one can fight for you is a real thing, in terms of you understanding that life, it has changed. Now, how I said before, it's not ended, it has changed. And you are going to have resolve within yourself and to really develop resilience within yourself. And it's not even about you relating to your child or your children, more so about yourself and understanding that, how I said before, you are still a woman. You are still your own independent human person, vessel, spirit, soul, who chose to become a mom later. And there are going to just be things that you're going to have to process and navigate. And it's part of your soul's calling. So there's no one that can understand it. Not the saying that they wouldn't try to or wouldn't care to. It's just some things you're going to have to go it alone. And for me, it was really remedying and rectifying a lot of things that I had learned personally growing up that I knew that I was not going to pass on, I was not going to continue on or instill into my daughter. And that was a personal choice. It was a personal battle because I know a lot of people outside looking in, of course, they have their opinions, and it goes back into the unsolicited advice episode as well. Yeah, at the same time, like you said, like I said before, it's boundaries in, and when it's a firm standard for yourself, that's just what it is. So that internal battle that I'm speaking to will have to do with a lot of that in terms of people trying to say things, or they might be projecting something, or they just flat out don't understand it, and so they're thinking they're giving you some good advice on how to process or navigate something. But a lot of times, like, it just might be that internal battle that you are just having to fight on your own. So even you having to understand that, like, body changes, I will say, is probably the biggest thing. Like, and as a breastfeeding mom, it was a battle and it was difficult. And it was something that I know, maybe a lot of moms, maybe it was easier for them. But it was something for me that was so important that I was just not willing to throw in the towel. I was not willing to just say, this is too hard. I'm just going to give up, and it's just easier to give her formula. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That was an internal battle that I was fighting. At the same time, I'm glad that I stuck it out as long as I could, because it helped develop my mental fortitude about other things in life. Like, even thinking back to her birth, like, I was adamant about having a non-medicated birth, and that's what I had, as difficult as it was. I know it would have been easier probably to go a different way. However, that's just not what I wanted from my personal experience. And those little things have led me up into where we are today. So there's internal battles sometimes where, Kind's she's very active. Has her own personality. She has her own mind about things. And her and I have had our, instances where we've butt heads. And I've really had to sit back in silence and just be calm and quiet about something, especially if I found myself getting upset. The example of the whole juice box incident. And I was really upset because I remember, like, telling her specifically, I said, please do not go in here without asking me. We've had this conversation before, because I think we just had got over a conversation for something else that had happened that we got through. And then here it is again, and she's doing something without asking. And now it's leading more stress and anxiety, because I'm literally in the middle of trying to navigate travel, meetings, other personal stuff we had going on. And then I'm having to break my neck to find a bathroom when this could have been avoided. So it was an internal battle for me to not lash out and be upset and just start, going off in the way that I experienced. A lot of adults in my childhood, like, you make a tiny little mistake and it was like World War 10, like on 10 times 10. And because I saw that as my example growing up, I made the conscious decision that I'm not going to be that type of mom. I'm just not going to have it. And it's a battle sometimes for me, because that part of all that you've known, the part of all that you were shown, and in my case was not a good thing. It's a battle to, like, not allow that to take hold and not to grow and take or to take foot or to grow in you, I guess. I don't know how to say that. But I feel like every time I do not allow that to take over, and I go to my calm place, I go to my internal harmony, and I just like stop talking and I breathe and I relax and I just like tell myself my internal affirmations. I know she probably gets a little bit like, I don't say she gets uneasy, but she knows something's wrong, or she knows like I'm really, really upset when I'm not talking and I'm just calm and I'm just like in my meditative space. It's because I am battling internally not to do to her what was done to me. And that's major for me. It's so major for me. And let me get a sip of water here. And that to me is so major to me. And it just goes to show how much we can grow and evolve as moms, as women, as parents. And we do not have to repeat patterns just because that was modeled for us. We have the control. We can choose to do better. We can decide to do better. We can command better of ourselves. And we can show up for ourselves and our children and showing them a better way. So, I will end this episode here. Those are 3 things I wish I really knew before becoming a mom. And I hope you find this helpful. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this. If there's things that you wish you had known. I felt like the internal battle was a big thing for me that I really didn't know that I would go through it. But I feel like it's one of those levels of like unconscious incompetence. Like you just don't know what you don't know. And until you get there in the moment in real time, that's when the work is going to take place. And that's when you know what you're really made of. Because it's one thing to, pontificate all day and theorize about things, read a book, listen to a podcast, no pun intended. Even from here, like I don't want you to just be like taking my word as gospel. Like I want you to actually go out and like live life and experience it, and like and take what you need from this, and like how the old folks say, take the meat and spit out the bones, if you will, because that's a part of growth in life, right? So yeah, let me know what you think. How have you been able to process things? What have you learned? What are some things that you wish you had known before? How do you feel about those internal battles? Are you feeling like that resonates with you, or there are things that you personally had to battle and fight and overcome? And yeah, just let me know. I would love to hear your stories. As always, you can find us online at newmommylifetv.com to learn more about our offerings and our programs and anything that we could potentially help you with on your mommyhood journey. And until next time, I look forward to speaking with you all very, very soon. Thank you all again so very much for today's episode. If you would love to learn more about all the things we have going on, talking about anything as it pertains to womanhood, crafting out an empowered and harmonious prenatal and postpartum or pregnancy plan as you are pouring into creating and raising a more conscious community, as you pour into more self-aware and conscious children that you are raising personally, as well as how we can all band together and create more community that is sharing that same sacredness and the space of that. We encourage you to visit us online on the website. It's newmommylifetv.com. Again, that's newmommylifetv.com. We have a couple resources there for you, and we can't wait to connect with you all in the very near future. Have a great one.